the federally funded program that prepares disadvantaged children for schools. The program began in 1965. It's run by the Department of Health and Human Services, but now it has been the target of federal cuts and grants and workers. On Monday, a federal lawsuit was filed by Head Start providers and others against the Trump administration, freezing funding, conducting mass layoffs at the regional offices for HHS, and stalling and delaying grants. Also this week, Senator Tammy Baldwin and 40 of her colleagues sending this letter to HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., expressing concern and demanding Head Start funding be released. And we are joined now by Senator Tammy Baldwin. So I'm curious, Senator, how much reaction has your letter received, either from HHS or other colleagues who did not sign the letter?
Well, certainly it's received a lot of reaction from concerned people in Wisconsin, parents and Head Start workers. But I will tell you, very alarmingly, we have heard very little from the Trump administration or from the Secretary of Health and Human Services. In the early days of this administration in January, they announced a funding freeze that led to many Head Starts across the state of Wisconsin not being able to access funding for their overhead and their staff. We had some closures. We also had folks that struggled with getting their funding even after the Trump administration acknowledged that they were stepping back on their funding freeze. But now we see things like consolidation of the regional offices so that personnel at the Head Start centers across Wisconsin can't even reach out to someone to get information about what's happening. And we are very concerned about where the Trump administration is going next as they put out budgets for the 2026 fiscal year.
All right, let's talk about that budget. And that regional office, just to clarify, was in Chicago. That was closed down on April 5th, along with 5 others around the country in cities, these regional offices. According to the New York Times, the administration plans to eliminate Head Start in their budget proposal coming up. Now, just illustrating one possibility here, I spoke with Green Bay Area Public Schools today, Senator. They do have a Head Start program, and money they receive from these federal grants allows them to serve over 300 families. Most of these 3- and 4-year-olds, they have 2 full-day 4K programs that are funded with Head Start money, and if that money goes away, then it's very likely those things go away. This is a district that's running on a deficit here. Congress has the sole power to eliminate this funding, right? So in your talks with your colleagues, is there an appetite for this in Washington?
You know, the Head Start program historically has enjoyed bipartisan support. And yet we have seen very few of my Republican colleagues willing to speak out against these proposals from the Trump administration. And so a lot remains to be seen. But I want to remind your viewers that their voices matter too, and they should be speaking loudly and clearly with their elected officials about how important Head Start is to the region and to the state. There are 299 Head Start centers in Wisconsin serving 15,000 children and families. If all of them were to shutter, we would have an alarming exacerbation of what is already a child care crisis. The impact on families across the state, where parents would have to consider leaving the workforce to take care of their children. I mean, the ripple effects are enormous.
Well, you mentioned this ripple effect, and here in the state of Wisconsin, you pointed out some numbers. We also have that child care accounts issue that's happening here within the state government. That money runs out. That was a pandemic funding program that was extended through June of 2025. The governor has proposed $480 million in his budget to continue that. We don't know if that continues. So in your opinion, based on the folks you've talked to, if we get this double whammy of Head Start and child care accounts going away, the impact on Wisconsin would be what, in your opinion?
It would be a devastating impact on the state of Wisconsin. Think about the fact that we already had child care deserts where there were 3 children needing child care for every 1 slot that was open. And then the idea that we might lose as a state nearly a third of all of our child care slots. And these are not, you know, when I say slots, we're talking about children and families who need care. it would have devastating ramifications. And yet, I want to say that as somebody who serves on the Senate Appropriations Committee, we had planned to increase significantly both Head Start funding and the Child Care Development Block Grant, which is child care assistance, tuition assistance for parents, in the 2025 budget, which my Republican colleagues ended up rejecting. And so we can do better. And I have bipartisan support for that effort to increase Head Start and child care funding in the federal budget.
Have you had these conversations with, you mentioned earlier there hasn't been a whole bunch of pushback from the other side of the aisle, but I'm curious, within the state of Wisconsin and your fellow congressional colleagues, have you had any conversations with them specifically? I know you and Representative Weed just recently said you bipartisan work on the Port of Green Bay. So these things do happen. Are they happening around this issue?
The bipartisan conversations that are happening right now are particularly among folks who serve on the Appropriations Committee. That committee, on which I sit, has had a history of strong bipartisan work. We know every year that our work product has to be passed in the Senate by a bipartisan vote of 60 or more votes. Mm-hmm. And so when we set out to write our bills, we're trying to work out a measure that people on both sides of the aisle can support. That's what we've done year after year after year, and we need to do it moving forward. But there's a lot of warning signs, a lot of alarm signs out right now with these unilateral cuts by the administration. Again, we believe that those were unlawful, illegal, unconstitutional. Congress passes bills, Congress sets the budget, and the administration is supposed to implement and administer those. So there's court challenges going on. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, we need to prepare moving forward to make sure that we have the backs of working families with children who need care.
Senator Baldwin, we thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
And we did reach out to the senator's Republican congressional colleagues, some of them from Wisconsin, for some comment. Congressman Tony Weed of the 8th District telling us, quote, Tammy Baldwin purposefully chose to cut Head Start when she voted to shut down the government last month. I'd like to know how Senator Baldwin and the mainstream media propose we tackle our runaway national debt without considering a single reform to our bloated federal budget, end quote. We also reached out to the offices of Senator Ron Johnson and Congressman Glenn Grothman. We have yet to hear back.